Hey, today I'd like to talk about the topic of the evolutionary shift in consciousness and my perception of it occurring through / in the body, and not so necessarily through the state of the mind or the emotional space. And of course, we're not going to decompartmentalize those. The mind and the emotional space do have a part to play in the evolutionary shift in consciousness. For me, and where I'm at this moment and have been for quite a while, I perceive it more to be about actually the state of the body and becoming more embodied as we are than escaping or trying to transcend out of the body. And that is my perception at this moment in time. Everyone is welcome to a different perception, or a supposed different perception of that. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about why I perceive it to be that way. So when we're in a place of say it's a thought that's arising that we might find challenging, or it's not in our preference, and we can get into this sort of like, oh, we'll positive think our way out of it. Or we're in an emotional space, again, that's challenging, or it's not our preference, and we are, again, trying to control that emotion. We're trying to use the mind to positive think our way out of that and into another space. And my perception is that when we are playing in that realm of trying to control and trying to direct thought and emotion, we're actually playing in the game of fear. And that is because we are believing that the thought and or emotion is us and or has control over us. And I perceive thoughts to be like programs, and they're often actually collective programs. So when a thought comes in, you often find there is a collective theme that could be going on, and the thought is actually not always yours. It could appear to be yours, but it's not usually yours. And emotions, I perceive them to be energy that is needing to move through the body. So me saying that is expressing that my perception is we are not them, yet we can experience them. We can experience thoughts and we can experience emotions, but we are not the thoughts and emotions. We do not have to identify with them as being who we are at our core. Although it is a fun experience, or can be a fun experience, to be here in this human form, to have thoughts and to have emotions, and especially in the emotional space when we're feeling things like joy and ecstasy and happiness and connection and just love in general. You know, it's beautiful, right? It's an experience that maybe we are not able to experience in the same way if we are in different states of living in the universe. And so yes, we can analyze our thoughts, and we can analyze our emotions, and we can become aware of where they come from and maybe why they arise, you know, and we can come from a place of curiosity, and you know that is something that we can do. However, when we get stuck in the mode of needing to heal or needing to change these thoughts or these emotions, we can get in the way of letting whatever arises to move through us, you know, without blame of another. And when we get in our own way of that, that's when we can get stuck in these thought loops, or emotions get stuck and lodged in the body. And when I use the metaphor, I keep saying the word metaphor lately, and maybe I'll do a vlog on why I say that sometimes in another day. So the way I perceive things is, with each generation that comes through, we have our own, I would call it light, but you could call it energy, that the body and the vessel can hold. And if we were to say we're all got the same size cup, however, each generation on a generalization and a collective level, we have a certain level of water or light or energy that the body can hold. And when we're releasing these densities of maybe these thoughts or emotions that can feel quite constricting and challenging within us, we're then able to hold more light within the vessel, more water, more energy. And, that's also why sometimes when we get certain generations coming through, they just refuse to play in particular programs because they're not here to hold density of those sorts of programs. And when we are getting stuck in thought loops and we are getting emotions stuck within our body, more density then starts to form, and we're not able to hold as much light in the body, as much energy. We can in certain ways, but it becomes quite challenging. So we're releasing more of that, and when we do that, that also then allows for the next generations to come through, and they're able to hold more and more and more water, more light, the evolutionary shift in consciousness. And so when you no longer fear an emotion or a thought, you're more in flow. And health is cultivated much easier and is also maintained with a lot more ease. We're becoming more aware that certain illnesses and diseases that we have within our body has an emotional and or story pattern trauma that we can be holding on to. And that's because we haven't allowed ourselves to move through what that is, and so it's lodged itself within the body. And thoughts play a part in that, but emotion is a really big factor and a big part to play in the illness and disease that we have, as well as obviously things like food and sleep and water and all of that sort of stuff. I'm not saying it doesn't, but emotions have the biggest part to play in that, and that all works together. I'm not decompartmentalizing, saying that sleep and food is over here and your emotions over here. There's a wholeness to that, and I can go into that more in another day. So personally, I'm not perfect, of course, but when I find that something arises, especially when I find it's quite a challenging or a restricting thought and feeling, the process that I usually go through is, what can I do to support the movement of this? And sometimes it's having to sit with it, not trying to change absolutely anything, but to sit with it and be present with it. It could be things like, I need to dance, or I actually need to communicate something to someone, and it's all done in a place of self-responsibility as well. So there could be for some a desire or a feeling of needing to release, and that can be done in a way that is not very considerate of those around. And it could also be done in a way where you're able to regulate that release in a way that it's not like you're dumping a whole lot of garbage onto another person. Now, that's not to say that they don't have a part to play in whatever it is that's arising, but it's this remembrance of coming back to self-responsibility. How much of that can you recognize is for you to take responsibility of? And that's also not to negate that there will be times where you will need to actually remove yourself from people, places and things because they're putting you in a consistent danger, to your well-being. It's just this balancing of self-responsibility and also when another's state of being is affecting you so much. So yeah, this is just me briefly touching on my perception of the evolutionary shift in the human. And I don't perceive it to be so much about the mental and emotional space of having to control that. I perceive it to be more of a space of allowing what needs to arise, be present with it, allow it to move through the body, and that will naturally shift and move us through the evolutionary shift. And it's through the body, it's through being in the body, not so much about meditating and traveling over there. And obviously there's forms of meditations you can do that actually get you in the body, of course, but it's also not about like astral traveling over there and going, and for some people that is their mission, to get out of the body and to go and do these practices, and that's really beautiful, and I have value for that. I just perceive that the real shift in consciousness is through the body, and getting more and more and more into the body than necessarily outside the body. So once you get outside the body, you're more prone to outside influences as well. And there's obviously more I could go into with that. So yes, it's a interesting concept and perception for me to be communicating here. I am doing my best to describe and to explain this concept, and it's not always the easiest thing to explain and describe through the use of words, and also through the use of this platform. So if you've got any comments or questions, you're more than welcome to leave them down below. And if you want to reach out to me on various other social media platforms, you can do so. The links are in the description box below. And I will see you again soon.